Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into just one chapter, Jeremiah 42, and it drops us right into a moment of real crisis.
Yeah, it's immediately after Jerusalem's devastation. The temple's gone. Babylon is, well, the dominant power. It's a rough scene.
Absolutely. And what's left is this small group, a remnant, terrified, and honestly completely lost.
They are. They're surrounded by ruin. They need direction. And so they turn to the prophet Jeremiah. They're asking for, a word from God.
And that sets up the core tension for this whole chapter, really. They ask God what to do. They even make this huge promise to obey. But the big question hanging over everything is when the answer comes, will they actually do it?
It's a classic human dilemma, isn't it? Played out here on this really dramatic national stage. So chapter 42 kicks off with this Gru approaching Jeremiah.
Right. Let's picture it. Who exactly is coming? The text mentions Johanan, Jezaniah, army officers.
Yeah, basically everyone who was left, from the least to the greatest, it says. The survivors who weren't dragged off to Babylon.
And they don't sugarcoat their situation. They tell Jeremiah straight up, though we were once many, now only a few are left. They know they're vulnerable.
Deeply vulnerable, just a handful of people in a wrecked land with the shadow of Babylon, the empire that just destroyed everything looming over them.
So they come with this plea. Please hear our petition, they say, and pray to the Lord your God for this entire remnant.
And the key part is they need to know what to do next. Specifically, where we should go and what we should do. It sounds desperate, like a real cry for help.
It really does. And then they make this incredibly solemn promise.
Oh, yeah, it's intense. They say, may the Lord be a true and faithful witness against us if we do not act in accordance with everything the Lord your God sends you to tell us.
And just to make sure it's clear, they add, whether it is favorable or unfavorable, we will obey the Lord our God.
That's quite the pledge, isn't it? Favorable or unfavorable, we'll do it no matter what.
It feels so significant. Like they're saying, whatever it is, however hard we're in. But you can't help but wonder, right? Are they really open to anything?
That's the question. Or have they maybe sort of already got a plan B in mind, and they're just hoping for God's okay?
They do connect obedience to things going well for them so that it will go well with us, they say.
Which sounds good, but what does well mean to them? Is it safety on their terms? Or is it flourishing God's way, which might look very different initially?
Good point. Now, Jeremiah, his response is immediate.
Yep, no hesitation. He says, I have heard you. I will certainly pray. I will tell you everything the Lord says and will keep nothing back from you. He is all in as the messenger.
And then there's that pause.
Right. 10 days later, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. 10 days. That's not instant.
What do you think that wait signifies? Is it a test? Time for reflection?
It could be many things. Maybe letting the weight of it sink in, or perhaps giving them more time to really consider if they meant that promise. It definitely adds some suspense.
It does. But eventually, the word does arrive.
Clearly and unequivocally. So Jeremiah calls them all back together, Johanan, the officers, everybody.
Okay, this is it. The moment of truth, the answer to where should we go and what should we do?
And God lays out two paths, option 1 and option 2, with very, very clear consequences for each.
Let's take option 1 first. God says, if you stay in this land, now hold on, stay in the ruins with Babylon still around.
Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? From a human perspective, it looks like the last place you'd want to be.
Exactly. Why would that be God's advice?
Because of the promises attached. God says, stay here and I will build you up and not tear you down. I will plant you and not uproot you.
Wow. That's powerful imagery. Building and planting right where everything was just destroyed. Restoration.
Total restoration. And God gives a reason, a really moving one. For I am grieved over the disaster I have inflicted on you. It's like he's saying, the judgment was necessary, but my heart aches. And now I want to heal and restore.
But that fear of Babylon must have been overwhelming. They just sacked the city. Staying must have felt like suicide.
And God knows it. He addresses that fear head on. Do not be afraid of the king of Babylon, whom you now fear. He names the fear.
He acknowledges it's real.
Yes. But then comes the assurance. Do not be afraid of him, declares the Lord, for I am with you and will save you and deliver you from his hands.
So it's not just stay and hope for the best. It's stay because I will be your protection.
Precisely. My presence is your safety, not geography. And there's more. God actually says he'll influence the Babylonians.
Influence them? How?
He says, I will show you compassion so that he, the king of Babylon, will have compassion on you and restore you to your land. God promises to soften the heart of their enemy towards them if they stay.
That's incredible. So the path to peace, even with the enemy, involves staying put and trusting God.
It's a massive leap of faith. Choose divine promise over visible danger. Trust God's power right there in the rubble. That's option 1.
Okay. Clear, demanding, but full of promise.
Yeah.
But you said there was an option 2, the one they seem to be leaning towards.
Yes, the path God warns against. However, if you say, we will not stay in this land, and so disobey the Lord your God.
And we get a glimpse into their thinking here. They're basically saying, no way, staying is too dangerous. We're going to Egypt.
Right. And why Egypt? Because they reason it's safe, it's stable, it's far from Babylon. They say it's a place where we will not see war or hear the trumpet or be hungry for bread.
Escape, comfort, security. After all the trauma, you can understand the appeal, can't you?
Absolutely. From a purely human, pragmatic standpoint, Egypt looks like the smart move, the rational choice for survival.
But God's response flips that completely on its head. It's chilling.
It really is. He says, okay, if you are determined to go to Egypt and you do go to settle there, then get ready.
You're ready for what?
For the very things you're running from to chase you down.
Yeah.
Then the sword you fear will overtake you there, and the famine you dread will follow you into Egypt, and there you will die.
Oh, wow. The irony is brutal. They run to Egypt to escape sword and famine, and God says that's exactly where sword and famine will find them and kill them.
Their place of refuge becomes their place of execution. And it's total. God says, indeed, all who are determined to go to Egypt will die by the sword, famine, and plague. Not one of them will survive or escape the disaster I will bring on them.
No survivors.
Yeah.
No escape. And he links this directly to his judgment, doesn't he?
He does. He basically says, remember how my wrath fell on Jerusalem. If you go to Egypt against my command, that same wrath will fall on you there.
So by choosing their own way, they're choosing the same fate as the city they just fled.
Exactly. And their future, bleak. You will be an object of cursing and horror, of condemnation and reproach. And the final nail in the coffin.
Look at that.
You will never see this place again. Choosing Egypt means permanent exile. No return, no restoration, gone for good.
So the contrast couldn't be starker. Stay in the scary place with God's promise, leading to life and restoration. Or run to the seemingly safe place against God's command, leading to guaranteed death and exile.
Black and white. Life and death. Blessing and curse. It's all laid out.
Which brings us to the very end of the chapter, where God kind of circles back to their initial request.
Yeah, he delivers one last sharp warning. O remnant of Judah, the Lord has told you, do not go to Egypt. Crystal clear.
And then he calls them out.
He does. He says, be sure of this. I warn you today that you made a fatal mistake when you sent me to the Lord your God and said, pray, tell us everything he says, and we will do it.
A fatal mistake just in asking. That sounds harsh. Unless
the asking itself wasn't genuine. That seems to be the implication. He's saying, you made it sound like you were open, but you weren't.
like they were just going through the motions, hoping God would agree with the plan they'd already settled on? The Egypt plan?
Exactly. It looks like an accusation of hypocrisy. Asking for guidance while your heart is already set on your own path, especially a path driven by fear rather than faith.
And God confirms they haven't listened. I have told you today, but you still have not obeyed in all he sent me to tell you.
The verdict is in. They heard the word, the clear instruction, but they didn't intend to follow it if it didn't align with their preconceived plan.
So that initial promise, favorable or unfavorable, rings incredibly hollow now.
Painfully hollow. And because their intention is clear, the consequences reiterated, locked in. So now be sure of this. You will die by the sword, famine, and plague in the place where you want to go to settle, in Egypt.
Wow. It's such a powerful story about about seeking guidance, isn't it?
Yeah.
They wanted things to go well, but their idea of well was immediate safety, running from the danger.
Well, God's idea of well involved trusting him in the danger, relying on his promise for protection and eventual restoration, even when it looked impossible.
It really throws into sharp relief that conflict between human calculation, based on fear, and what seems logical.
And trusting God's sovereignty, even when his path seems illogical or frightening.
And it forces us, I think, to look at how we seek guidance. Are we really open, truly willing to follow, even if the answer is difficult, uncomfortable, or goes against what we think is best?
Or are we sometimes, maybe subconsciously, just looking for that divine rubber stamp on a decision we've kind of already made, driven by our own fears, our own desires for comfort or control?
The consequence for them was so severe, this fatal mistake leading to total destruction. It shows how seriously God takes that kind of disobedience, especially after clear instruction has been given. It reveals a deep distrust, really.
A fundamental lack of trust in his goodness and power. And it contrasts so sharply with his stated desire for them to build you up, to plant you. He wanted restoration, but they chose a path that led only to ruin because they wouldn't trust his way.
So Jeremiah 42 leaves us with this image. People desperately asking for a map, promising they'll follow it anywhere.
And then getting the map, clear directions, pointing to life, but choosing to ignore it because they preferred a different route, one that seemed safer but led straight to disaster.
Yeah. And maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. When we face those crossroads, those moments of uncertainty, and we ask for direction, how can we be sure our hearts are genuinely open? How do we know if we're truly seeking God's will, ready for any answer, or if we're just looking for permission to take the road we've already chosen out of fear or comfort?